I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 108. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Friday, July 7th, and it's my birthday. Third straight pod with a birthday shout out. This one's for myself. My mom, my dad, and I, our birthdays are all within a week. It's kind of hell on my brother having to get everybody gifts, but yeah, another birthday. I don't really advertise it on Twitter, so don't reach out on Twitter with a happy birthday. If you want to do that, hop in the YouTube comments. You can do that for me. But yeah, I like these birthday shout outs. If you have a birthday out there, sickos, DM me. Send me a message and I'll give you a birthday shout out on the pod. But for this episode, I have a fun one. I had so much fun doing the prep for this one. It's the top 10 wins for Texas State since 2008. It's great going down memory lane, seeing some of these dubs. There's a little bit of slim pickings, but when I was really going through the list, it actually got difficult. There's a lot of good wins the last 15 years. Thought that was a good window, that 15-year window. No guest today, no interview, just me rolling solo. Before we get to the Bobcats, though, this episode is sponsored by Austin Patchmaster. Austin.patchmaster.com. Do you have any drywall repair you need, some cracks in your ceilings or walls? Maybe you want to remove some popcorn ceiling. Or maybe you punched a hole in your wall after one of these Texas State wins we're about to talk about. It'd be an old hole in your wall. Call my guys at Austin Patchmaster. They'll get it fixed right away at 512-200-3888. It's 512-200-3888. My guy Michael Clements over there, Tech State grad, true Tech State sicko. Thank him for supporting us all through this summer. And also happy birthday to Michael Clements. You know, I'm recording this on July 6th, and my birthday is July 7th. Today is actually Michael Clements' birthday, so special birthday shout out to our guy Michael over there. Again, that's austin.patchmaster.com, 512-200-3888. We are also sponsored by the Galindo Collective, TGC. We introduced them on the last episode, officially introduced them on the last episode, I should say. They are business consultants, a team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. They offer full-service solutions on general business evaluations, but specialize in residential and rental properties, commercial operations, and construction. If you own property and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com. That's Galindo, Galindo collective.com. You can also follow them on their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC, on Instagram and Facebook, and now Threads. Apparently, we're all on Threads. Are you on Threads yet, bro? But thank you to Rick Galindo over there at the Galindo Collective. Another Tech State grad, another true sicko over there supporting us all throughout the season. 50 episodes, and they're sponsoring our Sunbelt Media Day trip. Me and Zach Webb are going to be able to go to Sunbelt Media Day at the end of this month, July 23rd through the 26th, because of the Galindo Collective. So thank you very much to them. Please contact them with any business consulting needs you have. All right, let's do it. Let's get to these 10 wins. It's my birthday, like I said, so it's going to be a shorter pod. You know, no interview. It's just going to be me talking about Texas State wins. It's the dream, honestly, right there. It's funny I mentioned Threads. Are any of y'all on Threads? I think I'm ready to go back to Twitter. I'm ready to submit to Big Daddy Elon and his terrible rate limit. Just because their timeline isn't in chronological order on Threads, it's a nightmare. Because that's what I like about Twitter is seeing the timeline, see what the people you're following are saying, searching tweets. That's been the thing I hate the most about the rate limit. Is when I want to search for Texas State offers or anything, I can only search for so long before it says, "Oh, you've exceeded your limit." So I'm at least happy someone is competing, so that maybe Twitter will just go back to what it was and we can all be happy again. But follow me on Twitter at Kev_C or on Threads at Kev Chardello, because I can't change the name either. That's another thing. It's my full name. Who knows how to spell my last name? I barely do. That CI makes a ch sound at the beginning, in case you're wondering. But all right, let's do it. Top 10 wins for Texas State since 2008. I have honorable mentions as well, so I'm going to go through this 10. Then I've got like 5 or 6 honorable mentions that I wrote down. There was a lot of good wins. Not as many as a lot of us would hope, that's for sure. And it is sobering to go through a lot of those schedules and see L after L after L next to those games for the Bobcats. But we're not going to think too hard about that, at least right now. We're going to go through these 10 wins. So number 10, I've got Georgia State 2019. It was went to triple overtime. 37-34 win for the Bobcats. Now, I'll be honest, this one's at number 10. It almost didn't make the list at all, obviously, at number 10. I put it in there because I needed a 10th one, and I was deciding between a few others. And the thing that was the deciding factor was the triple overtime. It did go into 3 overtimes. Now, I will say overtime, just because a game goes into overtime doesn't mean it makes this list. There's a few I left off. But triple overtime, it's hard to leave that completely off the list, but it really wasn't that spectacular of a game. It was nice that the Bobcats got the win. It was the first year of Jake Spavital. Might have been his first conference win. I should have checked that. I think that was his first conference win. Bobcats had Gresh Jensen under center. Anybody remember that name? He went 16 for 25 for 129 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Just a very ho-hum day. Bob Stitt was the offensive coordinator then. That was a weird year. That was a funky year for Jake Spav's first season. But 137 yards rushing from Caleb Twyford. He was the real stud that day. But yeah, all in all, not nowhere near my most favorite game I've watched for the Bobcats. I mean, I have games that they've lost that I enjoyed more. But as far as this list of wins, that's a good one for number 10, I feel. Number 9, I almost put it higher, but I thought number 9, it would get rejected more if I put it higher. So I think 9's a good spot for it, but it's one that I personally really, really like, near and dear to my heart, and that's Stephen F. Austin in 2012. It was a 41-37 win. It's a good game. But the real reason I really like it is because it's a nice win over a former Southland rival, in-state rival. Nice to get that, to beat SFA. Texas, 2012 was Texas State's first year officially in the FBS. They did that transitional year in 2011, but 2012, they were in the WAC, the 1 year in the WAC before they went to the Sun Belt in 2013. But that was the first year where that they were fully an FBS team. And to play SFA, who was still FCS, to play them and to get that win at home in San Marcos, it was satisfying. It was satisfying to just kind of leave them behind and show them that, we are advancing and we're better than you. And that's what it felt like. Because, when Bobcats moved up, there was some, Sam Houston State, of course, they were salty, but SFA was salty too. They're not as loud as Sam Houston State, so it wasn't, didn't hear it as much, but they weren't. I can remember. I'm an old man. I just told you it's my birthday. I'm 35 years old today. I can remember back then, and the SFA fans were saying that Texas State doesn't deserve to be FBS and all this stuff, and it was nice just to shut them up that one game. And that season was kind of overshadowed by the first game of the 2012 season, which we will circle back and talk about. I won't spoil it, but I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about. But that game, I also knew something stood out to me about that game statistically. I was like, something happened that game, and I couldn't remember what it was till I dove into the box score, and I saw Isaiah Battle with a combined 199 yards in that game, 140 receiving, 59 rushing. He had a 98-yard touchdown reception as well. Has to be the longest touchdown reception in Texas State history. I didn't look that up, but I'm pretty sure, unless there's a 99-yarder out there somewhere. It's the longest one I've seen, that's for sure. I've seen a handful of 90-yard plus touchdowns from the Bobcats. and a couple others we'll talk about throughout this day. One of them's in honorable mentions, and I wrote it in honorable mentions specifically for that play. But yeah, number 9, SFA in 2012, Bobcats win 41-37 in San Marcos. Number 8, little closer to modern times, South Alabama in 2021, 4 overtimes. Bobcats win 33-31. It was the first time we saw the 2-point shootout after the second overtime. This was right after they introduced that rule, and second overtime ended, and it turned into a 2-point shootout. And it was like, oh, okay, here we go. Here's this college football's version of the penalty kick. Bobcats came out on top. Not too bad. It was a nice win for Texas State despite 3 picks from Brady McBride. That 2020 season for McBride, he really came along towards the end. High hopes for him in 2021, but then there was just a lot of performances like that, 3 interception games. That's even in one of the wins he got that season. He threw 3 picks, so it's tough because Brady had the talent. He just a little too much wild Bronco in him. Just try and make things happen that weren't there. Like, I bet if we went back and look at some of those 3 picks, he had an easy option, might have been a little bit open, and he tried to fit it between 2 defenders or something, dude. As much as I appreciate the confidence of thinking, like, I can make this play, sometimes I wished he would have made the smarter play. So yeah, number 8, 2021, 4 overtime win for the Bobcats over South Alabama. Number 7, this is our first road game. Number 7 is Tulsa in 2014. Another overtime game, 3 overtimes for this one, but this is pre-2-point shootout. This is 2014. Bobcats win 37-34. That season, that 2014 season was something. They started out the season with a 65-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff before 2 losses to Navy and Illinois. So that big win was awesome, and then they followed up with 2 losses, so the Bobcats were feeling a little bit down at the time before they go up to Tulsa, really needing a win to get some momentum for the season. And they did. They got that win, and I feel like that Tulsa win that year, it set the tone for the rest of the season, that 2014 year where they went 7-5 and got snubbed out of a bowl. But that set the tone for a winning season that year. That year, the 7 wins that year, won its last 2 games by 18 and 23 points. Texas State did over Georgia State and Arkansas State. Still no bowl game. Gosh, man, that one is such a travesty that year because that was such a good team. Tyler Jones at quarterback, David Mayo, Michael Rackbo, Craig Mager on defense. That was a great team that got snubbed. And a more than decent season as well. So there you go. Number 7, Tulsa, 2014. Number 6, Arkansas State, 2020. A little more recent for y'all as well here. This was Brady McBride's best game as a Bobcat. It was incredible. After I saw that game, I was ready to hand him the keys to the entire program. I was so ready for the 2021 season. It was going to be Brady's year. It didn't end up that way, but 2020, we definitely had good feelings. Brady McBride in this game, 32 for 45, 443 yards passing, and 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns to 4 different receivers, too. He hit TJ Graham twice, Jeremiah Haydell, Marcel Barbie, and Javin Banks. Remember we were talking about naming dudes, naming names? I had a lot of fun doing this one. Naming names. And some of those names, Jeremiah Haydell, Marcel Barbie, Javin Banks, they were stacked at receiver. That's one thing that the Spavital era was really able to do well is getting a lot of receivers. It was the quarterback that was more of a situation than these receivers. They had good running backs, good receivers. Offensive line and quarterback really set them back. And they just never utilized tight ends either. But yeah, number 6, Arkansas State. Might be the best game I've ever seen from a quarterback at Texas State. I truly think so. Statistically, it's hard to not think that. I know Tyler Jones had some good games that we're going to talk about him as well. Statistically, he was pretty close to this game in one of them. Pretty sure I'm going to talk about it. Look at that. It's next actually at number 5. But that was a good segue, unintentional segue there. Number 5 is Ohio in 2016. Overtime win for the Bobcats. Everett Withers' first game coaching Texas State. 56-54 win for the Bobcats. 39 combined points in the fourth quarter from these two teams. I mean, they were really, really going at it in the final quarter. Texas State had 22 of those points. Ohio had 17 in that fourth quarter. Tyler Jones, here you go. Here's might be the second best game, and who knows? It could be. It's a good argument. Which one was better, this Brady one or the first Brady one I just talked about, or this Tyler one here? Tyler Jones against Ohio in 2016, 40 for 55 passing, 418 yards, 4 touchdown passes, 1 rushing. And I had 7 catches for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns for somebody, but I didn't write down their name. Sorry about that. I'll have to go back and add that in there here in a little bit. But somebody had 7 catches for 105 yards that game. So number 4, we have Wyoming in 2013. This is a fun one. It's a 42-21 win over Wyoming. You know, not necessarily a close game, not necessarily a rival by any means, but it was just everything that went into this game surrounding it and then what happened during it. So right off the bat, it's the debut of Tyler Jones. Now, I'm going to take you back to 2013. Tyler Jones is a true freshman, and in fall camp he arrives, and they immediately, being Dennis Franchione, old school coach, got to give the new quarterback a red shirt. Puts him on scout team while he starts working out Tyler Arndt and Jordan Moore, I believe is who it was. Tyler Arndt and Jordan Moore is 2 other quarterbacks, and the competition was between them. While on this side they were doing the practice field. On the right side of it is where they have their first and second unit offense going against the scout defense. And then on the other side, on the left side of the field, it's the first and second unit defense going against the scout offense. Now on the scout offense, while Arndt and Moore are working with the teams on the right side going against the scout defense, Tyler Jones is over here with the scout offense going with the starters on defense and torching them. I mean, we're at practice because this is Fran. Fran let us just watch all of practice, which was amazing. I mean, sometimes I would even be able to stand right by there while the coach is calling out plays and everything, and they didn't mind. The one thing they'd mind is if you were tweeting. They had a no tweeting rule, no tweeting at practice, which was fine. I would trade that for the access they would give us. But Tyler Jones on scout team, it was so hard not to just turn and watch him and see what he's doing over there. Because he wasn't going against a scout defense. He's going against the real defense, and that was a good defense. There were no slouches. Defense was the calling card of that era. And Tyler Jones is looking great. And everyone's murmuring to themselves like, this is the guy. That's the guy right there. Why are we messing with Arndt and Moore? But the first 3 games that year, I mentioned the 65-0 win. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was 2014. But so the first 3 games that year, I was mixing up 13 and 14 right there. So disregard the 65-0 win was 14. So the first 3 games of that season, they're struggling at quarterback. They don't know exactly what to do, who's going to be the guy. And then the Wyoming game comes up, and that's the game where they ripped the red shirt off Tyler Jones, where it was kind of interesting for Fran himself to take a true freshman and realize, like, you know what? I wanted to develop him. I had these plans, but we got to throw him out there and get this thing going now. And now it was his first game. Well, I have his stats right here, I'm sure. It was his first game, so they didn't throw the whole playbook at him. In fact, he only attempted 18 passes that game. He was 14 for 18, though, for 196 yards and a touchdown. Now, that touchdown was great. It was right before halftime. I specifically remember him hitting Ben Aja in the left corner of the end zone on a great pass, great catch, too, by Ben Aja. And it was right then I was like, yep, all right. Everything we saw at practice with this scout team is true. This guy is special. He is the real deal. It took that one pass, but that one really did it for me. Robert Lowe was the real stud, though. He was the one who kept the Bobcats ahead of Wyoming with 138 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns by Rob Lowe. Man, I hope y'all don't forget about Robert Lowe. He was a terrific running back for the Bobcats. It's a fun time running the ball for the Bobcats with Rob Lowe and Chris Nuttall and Terrence Franks, and that was fun. A fun era for the Bobcats. You know what's funny is it was fun, but I feel like I didn't appreciate it as much at the time. I was jaded. I thought that, oh man, this isn't even good enough yet. What is this? 6-6, 7-5? No way. It needs to be double-digit wins. And then little did I know, the real bane of my existence is double-digit losses. I would cover a lot of seasons with those after this one. The debut of Tyler Jones, though, man, those first 2 years with Tyler Jones were fantastic. 2015, he was still pretty good. It was just that a down year with Fran his last year, and they lost a lot of really good players. And then Withers came in 2016, and I can remember Withers just he liked to blame Tyler Jones for things that weren't his fault. Tyler Jones had a terrible offensive line that 2016 season, and that was when I started to sour early on Withers. Was how much criticism he heaped on Tyler Jones, a senior quarterback, a 4-year starter, and it's his fault. Like, okay. But yeah, shout out Tyler Jones. Big fan of him. I'm pretty sure I'm still blocked by him on Twitter, though. I've tried to look up, hey man, what's Tyler Jones up to? Oh man, that's right. He blocked me. I don't think it's for anything specific. He's a quiet guy, and he seems like the kind of guy who blocks out the media. He's not worried about what some goofballs with a podcast are saying. So probably smart. Probably why he's the only 4-year starter I've covered here. But yeah, that was number 4, Wyoming, 2013, 42-21. Had to put it in the top 5 just because of all the stuff I talked about with Tyler Jones going into it. Oh, you know what? I didn't even talk about the biggest part of that game, the 3-hour lightning delay, 3+ hour lightning delay, I should say. So Tyler Jones is cooking, then lightning strikes, and they call off the game. I think it was 3 hours and 17 minutes. I know I put it in my article at the time because at the time it was the longest delay in a college football game that there had ever been. I mean, most everybody left. I remember at the time I was living in Austin. Started in San Marcos when I moved here, lived in Austin for a bit, smartened up, came back to San Marcos. But this was the time I was living in Austin. I drove all the way back to my apartment because everybody around there was like, this game's probably not going to continue tonight. So I drive back to my apartment and I hear 30 minutes, this game's going to start. And I came all the way back, got to finish this one, and Bobcats finished it out and got that win. So that's another reason it's on that list. The fact that they came back after that rain delay and were able to still pull off this win. They didn't that's basically a whole game in between finishing the game. I mean, 3 hours and 17 minutes or whatever exactly it was, that's basically an entire game. So for them to come back and still and not be rusty and finish it off was pretty cool. I'll remember that 2013 game for sure, for a multitude of reasons. Jones's first game and the rain delay. Number 3 is going to be controversial because I feel like a lot of you, based on your comments and everything on Twitter, have this one as your number 1, but I have it as my number 3. And that is App State last year, 2022. 36-24 win for the Bobcats on family weekend. I forgot about that till I was doing some prep for this pod. Like, oh yeah, that was on family weekend. Took the lead in the first, and they never looked back. They just straight up owned the Mountaineers. And for a team that had been beating the Bobcats a lot, it was nice to not just beat them. It wasn't even they beat them in a close game. It's like they took the lead and they ran that game. They controlled it from the beginning to the end. And it was just satisfying for a lot of fans out there to beat this team that's won the Sun Belt recently and to take down one of the not staples, I should say. They actually are younger in the Sun Belt than the Bobcats, but one of the premier teams, that's how I should put it, premier teams in the Sun Belt, to hand them a loss in San Marcos as well. It's great. Man, only two road games so far. But yeah, this one was at home as well. The top 2 are on the road. Little hint. But Lane Hatcher, probably his best game as a Bobcat. I'm not saying too much, but 26 for 36 for 281 yards and a touchdown. Ashton Hawkins with 6 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. It improved the Bobcats to 3-2. I remember there was a lot of hope after that App State win. It's like, they're halfway to bowl eligibility, and we just got to conference play. Won one game the rest of the year, so it didn't work out that way. But it's still nice. It's one that I think Texas State will hang its hat on for years, especially not playing App this year. It's another year of getting to brag about that to Mountaineer fans. So you got that. You got that in your back pocket, Bobcats. And not to mention, we just talked about all the uniform combos, the gold, black, which was a pretty cool look. And to get a good win in it, not bad. Yeah, that was number 3, App State last year. Sorry if you thought it should be higher, but hear me out. Hear me out on these next 2. These 2 are very near and dear to my heart. But we're going to go back to, this is the one and only FCS era, Division I AA era, I guess I should say, is what it was really called back then. But we're going to go back to 2008. Sam Houston State, 48-45 win in overtime for the Bobcats, last regular season game of that season. It was the first outright conference championship the Bobcats had won in the Southland, first and only in the Southland, and it was the first conference championship they had won since 1982 when they went 14-0 and won a national championship. So it felt really good. Now, there might be an asterisk by that conference championship for the Bobcats because Central Arkansas was in their first year in the Southland, so they couldn't win the Southland Conference Championship. And in fact, Central Arkansas beat Texas State that season and finished with a better record. Doesn't matter, though. It was a transitional year. So Bobcats got the Southland Conference Championship that year, and it came down to the final game of the season at Sam Houston State in Huntsville. First year on the beat for me at the University Star. I drove all the way to Huntsville to go see that game. It was first road game I ever covered. It was an important game. I get out there and the Bobcats go down 21-0 right off the bat. I think it's the second quarter. They're down 21-0. I'm like, man, I may have just wasted the very little gas money that I do have to get here to Huntsville. But it ended up not being a waste. The Bobcats came all the way back, took that game into overtime. Carrington Bush punched it in to win the game. I can remember that's when they sit us in the press box. 5 minutes before the game is when they'll bring all the reporters down from the press box, get ready for the interviews. So I was down on the sideline, standing at the end zone that Carrington Bush scored on to win the Southland Conference, and it was great. It was Brad George versus Rhett Bomar. Some of you may remember the name Rhett Bomar. He was a highly rated recruit coming out of high school, went to Oklahoma as a quarterback. Got in some trouble with a fake job. He had washing cars or something like that. Had to transfer to Sam Houston State against Brad George, 6'6", 26-year-old man. It was a battle. It was a battle. I know I wrote some of their stats down here, I'm sure. George had 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Carrington Bush with 97 yards rushing, including the game-winning touchdown. Stan Zwingy with a 91-yard touchdown catch. I'm glad I wrote that one down. I would have forgot to say it just now, but Stan Zwingy, 91-yard touchdown catch. Got to remember that one. Stan Zwingy was an interesting guy. He was never really a starter, but man, he made a lot of really good plays. I can even remember at Pro Day. This is the Cam Luke era. If any of you remember Cameron Luke, terrific receiver for the Bobcats. He was the big star at Pro Day that year. It's 2009, I would guess, January, February in 2009, maybe even March. And so going into it, everybody was like, okay, this is a pro day basically for Cameron Luke. But then I get there and I start talking to some of the scouts. This was, they were a little more accessible at this pro day setting. The stuff they do now, it's kind of hard to even get to the scouts. They really separate media away. But these are the early days for Texas State, so I was able to get in there and sneak over to a scout and say, hey, who are you looking at? It's been long enough so I can even say this part. I can remember it was a scout for the Saints. And I go, what do you think? What do you think of Cameron Luke? And he's like, I'm actually not here looking at Cameron Luke. I'm looking at Stan Zwingy. I'm here to check his 40 time, and he's pretty dang fast. I think he had like a 4.4 40, something like that. So shout out to Stan Zwingy. 91-yard touchdown catch in 2008. The Bobcats went on to make the playoffs, and they lost to Montana. but still went on to the playoffs. That one it's an FCS one for sure, and there's some better FCS ones. In fact, I've got some from Volley Dan that I'll read about after I'm done going through the top 10 list. We'll read about them in the honorable mentions. That's the only one I put in there though. Just it's a big one, I feel. I mean, winning conference, how can you deny that, especially when it hasn't happened since? I think a lot of you might not like it there at number 2. You may not remember it. I might be a little older than you, but I think some of the old heads like myself will remember that great Sam Houston State game. Number 1, all of you know it. You already know what it is. And I'm going to remind you exactly why it's number 1 over that App State game. And that's Houston in 2012. This is the best win in Texas State's history. I should say modern history. The best wins, they won 2 national championships, so we got to put those ones at the tippy top. But pretty close is this Houston game in 2012. Let's set the table a little bit. It was a 30-13 win for the Bobcats, which, not a close game by any means. But the big thing about it is the first double-digit win ever by an underdog of 34 points or more. Let me repeat that. It is the first double-digit win. It was the first double-digit win ever by an underdog of 34 points or more. That's incredible. It's the only time at the time. I don't know if it's happened since. I think it may have, but at the time that was it. It had never happened before, and Bobcats were 34.5-point underdogs. It's only the 7th time a team has won after being 34-point underdogs. At the time, I should say, it was 7th. If you had bet $100 on Texas State to win that game, you would have netted $12,000. $100 would have won you $12,000 if you bet on the Bobcats that night. And you also got to think about the context of Houston. This was the first game of the season in 2012. Houston had just went 13-1 the year before with Case Keenum under center, Kevin Sumlin as their coach. They won a bowl game over Penn State that year. They were fresh off an incredible season. Now Keenum was gone. Sumlin went off to A&M. Yeah, a lot changed, but there was still they're not having it being the very first game that season. There was still this idea that Houston they had still the number 1 offense in the country. They're expected to do all this crazy stuff. I mean, they were projected to win by 34.5 points. Not just score 34.5 points, but win by that much. That's how much respect the Houston Cougars had going into this game. I can remember 2012. So a little bit of Kef origin story if you want some. I walked the stage to graduate in 2011, May of 2011 at Texas State, but I still had 3 hours left because you can walk the stage with 12 hours left. So that's why I claimed 2012. Because I only had one class to do. It was one specific class. It was world religion. There was only one of them, and I waited all summer to sign up for it. And by the time the fall semester showed up, class was full. So I had to wait for the spring semester. So I didn't take any classes that fall. Waited for spring for my 1 3-hour class, knocked it out, got the degree. So at this time, I'm officially graduated because we're talking fall of 2012. Going into the season, my first season as an alumni, if you will, an official alumni. And I can remember my buddy, Chris Washington, shout out to Chris, he's living up in Austin these days, was like, hey, we could go to that game. It's in Houston, not too far away. Bobcats going to lose. No way I'm going to go to this game. So I'm sitting in San Marcos watching this incredible upset. Marcus Curry, what was it, 4 touchdowns that game? Why didn't I not write down Marcus Curry's stats? I'm pretty sure he had 4 touchdowns that game. It was so much fun. It was so satisfying. The feelings, what is this, 11 years ago we're talking? The feelings then was just like, all right, here come the Bobcats. First year officially in the FBS. First official FBS game. Again, they had the 2011 transitional season, but this was the first official FBS game, non-transitional or anything, and they get that win, a big win. The only time, I'll repeat that again, it is the first double-digit win ever by an underdog of 34 points or more. So that is the number 1 win for Texas State has. And it's, to me, it's not even much of a debate. Recency bias. You can remember that App State game from last year, and I will always cherish that game. It's near and dear to my heart. But that Houston win, I just think of the history that followed after that may have some of you second guessing that era and everything, but that was a huge win. Huge win. So there you go. We'll go through it again real quick. Number 10, Georgia State in 29, 3 overtime game, 37-34. Number 9, SFA in 2012, 41-37 win for the Bobcats. Number 8, South Alabama in 2021, 4 overtimes, 33-31 win for the Bobcats. Number 7, Tulsa in 2014, 37-34 win in triple overtime. Number 6, Arkansas State in 2020, 47-45 win for the Bobcats. Number 5, Ohio in 2016, 56-54 win in overtime. Number 4, Wyoming 2013, 42-21 win. Number 3, App State in 2022, 36-24 win. Number 2, Sam Houston State in 2008, 48-45 win. And number 1, Houston 2012, 30-13. There you go. Still need a P5 win. We can't retroactively give Houston the P5 tag now that they're in the Big 12. Still need a P5 win. I almost did that, and we want to make this a happy pod. You know, I almost went through and was like, well, what are the P5 stats? And I'll save that for another episode. This one we'll just talk about wins, but we're going to talk about some of the other P5 losses they've gone through. But not yet, not on this one. This one, let's do a few more honorable mentions just real quick. I'm sure a lot of you have some games on your list that I didn't read, but maybe it's right here. 2021, Texas State versus Florida International, win to overtime, 23-17 win for the Bobcats. It's only on this honorable mention maybe list because it went to overtime. It really was a boring game. I have a couple blowouts here as well. Honorable mention blowouts. Texas State over Prairie View A&M in 2015, 63-24. I'm sorry, I think that's 2014. Oh no, that's 2015, 63-24. That was in 2015. That was a tough season, but that was a big win in that 2015 season. And then the biggest one in this era is against Arkansas Pine Bluff in 2014, 65-0. I forgot about that one. 65-0. I mentioned it earlier when talking about that 2014 season and everything that went into that, but I didn't remember the 65-0 win until I was doing prep for this pod. I've got another one from 2015. It's Texas State 36, South Alabama 18. Wasn't necessarily a great game. Nothing particularly great that would put this one on the list, except for the Brandon McDowell kick six. If you don't remember it, I'm sure it's probably on YouTube somewhere. It's the best play I've seen covering a team. It's the only time I've ever seen a kick six. Most of you are familiar with what a kick six is, but that is when a team misses a field goal. It comes up short. It's a long field goal attempt, usually at the end of the half or end of a game. And the other team will have the wherewithal to put a returner back just underneath the uprights. And on this one, Brandon McDowell got back there, caught that ball, and ran it all the way back for a pick six. There's no cheering in the press box, but that's the closest I ever got. I would just, not for the Bobcats, but specifically just for that play, to see that very rare kick six play. I don't know how many of them have happened in the history of college football. I'm sure more than I realize. But for me, it felt very rare. It's a moment I won't forget. So that one's on the honorable mention list, 2015 against South Alabama. This one's another blowout. The next two are just blowouts. I didn't want to add blowouts. I wanted to add some good games as well. But this one's from 2012 as well. Would have been the third one from that year. That's 38-7 win over Idaho. It's a nice win just to whoop them. And then also from 2012, last game of the season, 66-28 over New Mexico State. 2012 was more interesting a year than we realized. For me personally, the loss to UTSA, the second to last game of the season, that's the one that stands out. So I'll get maybe just I have subconscious bitter feelings towards that year, but there was some good stuff from that season as well, because they lost the UTSA and then they followed it up with the 66-28 win over New Mexico State. So it's nice to at least get a little bit of that redemption. There you go. Those are the honorable mentions. Let me see. I mentioned Volley Dan on Twitter. Shout out to Volley Dan. He sent a post that I wanted to make sure to read. Yeah, it says, looking back at this is so depressing over this 15-season span. We've only had 65 wins total. That's an average about 4 per season. And there likely aren't 10 actual impressive ones. I disagree. I'll never forgive what Troth and Tice did to this program. That part I will agree with. It's the main reason I wanted to read it is there aren't a whole lot of wins for us to talk about. It feels like we're in a better place with this program right now in 2023, but we can't forget that what it festered and became, where mediocrity reigned for so long here that we struggle to think of 10 wins, and we can't ever let it get back to that. It takes people. I think a lot of you saw that when all of you got really loud and started truly voicing your concerns around 2017, 2018. Changes happened, and you can enact change when you stay passionate and you keep your standards high for this program that you root for. And your standards should be high. You should want more wins all the time, and you shouldn't feel bad for pointing it out, for pointing out mediocrity, because that's what happened a lot here. Is you'd point out mediocrity and someone would be like, hey man, we're trying. And it's like, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's the reason this podcast is called Win Now or Get Bent. It's because there needs to be some standards here. And all of you listening to this, you true sickos, you know that. You have these standards. I'm literally preaching to the choir with all that. So I know you understand that. But it's humbling to go through all those schedules and to see where this program was. It feels like it's in a better place, but we haven't seen the results yet. We're in that before period, it seems, and we'll see. We'll see what GJ Kinney can do with these Bobcats. I love all the recruits. I love everything he's about. Love how he's invigorated people for donations and everything. It seems like the foundation is set. Volley Dan, he also added some good FCS ones. Said we did knock off number 3 McNeese in 2008. Shout out to Webb. He graduated there undergrad. In your face, buddy. And number 11 SFA in 2009. Love beating SFA. Love it. They talk too much. Maybe I just know too many people at SFA. That might be the issue. Also got a SFA win in 2010. Nice. When they were number 3. Oh, that's nice. Had a few other wins against top 25 FCS teams during that 08 to 2011 era as well. Yeah. So there were some good wins. That's why I also wanted to read that part. Is I did leave off some good wins in that era. I feel like FBS carries a little more weight, especially when you look at the strength of the opponent that they're going up against. But that era, 2008 to 2011. I mean, that's when I started. That's when things were pretty solid here. It started to drop off, 2010 is when it really started to take a little bit of a dip. That last year of Brad Wright, but there was some good football played here. But great stuff. Appreciate that, Volley Dan, for jumping in there. I said this was going to be a short pod, but of course, then I go and spend 45 minutes talking about 10 wins. There you go. Sorry, everybody. I'm sure most of you enjoy it. But make sure you follow us on Instagram, WNOGB on Instagram. We're going to start posting a lot there, maybe post some video clips from the pod and everything. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please check us out, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Show your friends, tell the world. We're on Threads, as I said, WNOGB on Threads. If you want to check us out there, we'll see how long that lasts. We're going to try it. Thank you again to TGC and Austin Patchmaster for sponsoring us this summer. TGC for sponsoring us through the season and for Sunbelt Media Day. Go check them out, TGC at thegalindocollective.com. And our guys at Austin Patchmaster, austin.patchmaster.com, 512-200-3888. And hey, if you wanna sponsor the pod, if you want to advertise and want to hear your business said at the beginning or middle of this podcast, hit me up at WNOGBKEF at Gmail. That's WNOGBKEFF at Gmail. We've got discounts for sickos. We've got great rates for local businesses here in San Marcos. Even if you're not in San Marcos, we can still figure something out and get you out here and get the people knowing about your business. Thank you, sickos. Appreciate all of you tuning in. None of this is possible without you. And none of this is possible without Zach Webb, my producer, the wizard over there. Appreciate all his hard work. Even throughout the summer when everyone's partying on the 4th of July and hanging out by the river, Webb's in the wizard den, the wizard tower, I guess. That's what he likes to call it. He's in his office doing the Lord's work for us, getting this great content out there. And he has a very difficult job of making me look good. And he does a great job of it. But all right, Tuesdays and Fridays, that's the schedule. So be ready. Next Tuesday, we'll have another good one for you. And we'll have a guest for that one. Don't know who it is yet. I've got a few in the works, but we'll get down to that when we get down to that. But all right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Win now or get bent.